Oh, and by the way, I forgot, I have this beautiful butternut squash. I think what I might do is add maybe half of this to the soup as well. I'm going to do a fine dice on this because it's really, really good. I don't know if you've ever had butternut squash before, but it's a little sweet, kind of like acorn squash or pumpkin. It's about the same color as pumpkin on the inside. It's got a beautiful creamy outside, so I'll be putting this into it as well. I was actually just finishing clearing out the cavity of the butternut squash and collecting the seeds. I noted just a minute ago that I was going to save these seeds and use them in my garden next year. And I was thinking I'd better clarify. Not everything in the grocery store that contains seeds would be good for growing in a garden. For example, potatoes have been treated with a spray that would not allow them to really grow that well as perhaps seed stock. So I wanted to make that known. Sometimes even tomatoes would have inferior seeds that wouldn't really allow, for a really good plant to grow. I have had some success, but not quite as well as the organically grown. When they use organic practices, it just seems to yield a better plant when you plant the seeds. So I just wanted to note that, because the way these were grown, these are actually good, viable seeds that I'll be saving so I can have more of these gorgeous squash. All right, this is going to be really tough, and I don't think I'll be able to chop it and film it at the same time because if you saw my honeybill review, you'll know that I'm a little clumsy. So I'll show you when I'm done dicing this. This is actually what the butternut squash looks like on the inside. Isn't that beautiful? It's actually a little bit more of an orange than it appears on the camera, but it is just beautiful, and it actually smells like a nice cool fall day. It's got this beautiful fresh fragrance to it. And these seeds I'll be saving to plant in my garden next spring. Though this is a winter squash, there is a little bit of a misconception about them. They're not actually grown in the winter. All squash are grown in the summer, or spring and summer. The reason why these are called winter squash is because of the hard rind. The rind is actually cured for a little while, so it's a little tougher than maybe the zucchini. You notice that has a very soft outside, very tender outside. You can easily scratch with your nail, but this actually has a rind to it, so they store over winter. So that's why they're called winter squash. So what I'll do is I'll take a spoon and clean all this out, much like you would a pumpkin, and I'll save those seeds and dry them for next year. And I'm going to dice these up into the soup. Okay, I wanted to show you real quick how to clean a butternut squash. What I did is I actually cut the ends off to make it a little bit easier to maneuver, since those will have to be done a little bit differently. But I just take a regular vegetable peeler, and I actually have a pretty heavy-duty one. I tried to use one of those ceramic peelers and broke it, so on hard flesh vegetables, I usually try to stick with my metal one. You can see it actually peels pretty easily, but you do have to push down a bit. I'll go over this one more time. You can see that beautiful orange coming through. These are beautiful. And you'll notice little green stripes in there. That's okay. You don't have to peel those off. That's just part of the squash that you do eat. It's not like watermelon where you have to, cut it down to a certain amount. Just once you get the skin off, go down to the good stuff. This actually has a pretty thin rind on it. I've seen some slightly thicker, so I guess it just kind of depends on the butternut squash that you get. This is always the fun part. I usually grip it like this and just go straight across the top. So there we go, nice and clean and ready to be diced. So there we go. For this, you want a good, big, sharp knife. This is actually one of my favorites. So use a little leverage. There you go. Beautiful, isn't it? This looks like a giant carrot. Though after canning 50 pounds of giant carrots last weekend, I don't think I really want to think about carrots right now. Okay, then what I'll do is I'll cut them into sticks like this, almost like a mirepoix chop. Then stack them up. Watch your fingers. I actually attended cooking school and was constantly fussed at by the teachers because I never curled my fingers under, but I just can't chop something like this you know, guiding by knuckles. It was just always too hard for me. So there you go. Beautiful butternut squash. Look like little cheese cubes. All right, back to it. Okay, so I got the majority of my butternut squash chopped up. Beautiful, isn't it? Still think it reminds me of cheese cubes. But anyway, on to, ta-da, the bottom part. So I've already gotten this one cleaned out and peeled, blossom and chopped off. I want to show you how to do it. There is no one way to do this. It's whatever works out for you, and my technique changes per butternut squash, just depending on how big it is and my mood for the day. So much like the other half, you just peel it best you can. Keep a good tight grip. I have my thumb in there. That'll change in a minute. Now this way. And be careful. You don't want to peel off your thumb. I've done it. It's not fun. Don't recommend it. Keep going. Down the side. Yes, this seems like it's hard work. It's actually not. It's a little bit painstaking, but it's so worth it. These are really delicious squash, and seriously, if you haven't tried one yet, you really should. They're a great winter squash. Now, this part will be cut off, put on the flat end, and down you go. Roll this into a waste bowl. Okay, and here you go. Two beautiful ends. We'll chop those the same way into a fine dice. They actually chop a little easier once you hit that hollow part, so be careful. Tell you what though, chopping these up seriously builds great arms. There, you're noticing I'll keep some of this on there. That's okay. When it cooks down, it'll just go into the soup and it'll be fine. I've never had any complaints about it. Think anybody's ever died from squash? I don't think so. No. Okay. Cameraman thinks I'm all right. Okay. Go. Do you wanna try a bite? Mm-hmm. No, it's okay. You don't eat them raw. Oh, okay. Appreciate you being so willing, though. There we go. One more. This is real easy. I'm sure you get the gist of it. Cut it one way, cut it the other. All right, this won't be the most dazzling part of this video that you'll see, but necessary. Maybe you'll think about it when, you know, you're chopping up a large amount of vegetables. And we're all in it together. We all sit there with our eyes just absolutely crossing with all the amount of vegetables we have to cut up. But in the end, you end up with something so beautiful. And you have great arms. Here's your strong hands. And a beautiful soup. So, don't worry, you won't have to watch me cut up the rest of this. I'll get back to you when I get more ingredients put together. I forgot to show you this part, but I've had a little olive oil in my big pan, and I've dumped all my vegetables, well, almost all of them. I decided to add a little bit of peas and carrots to it, and tomatoes. I'm actually not going to add that just yet, because what I want to do is saute these vegetables lightly, get a nice caramelized flavor on it, before I add the tomatoes, which will add a lot of liquid to this. So I'm going to do that like that. It smells really good. We have smell addition. So I'm going to let these saute a bit, and I'll come back when I add the rest of the vegetables. Okay, so I'm adding in a third of a cup of the chicken bouillon, a tiny pinch of cinnamon. Why do I add a little bit of cinnamon? It seems to add a really sultry note, especially to chicken soups. I'll actually add a little bit of cinnamon and nutmeg to my chicken soup I make in the winter. Oh, penicillin, it's wonderful. And some adobo. Should have measured this out, but one-handed filming. There we go. And notice I'm adding a lot. Big pot, lots of seasoning, lots of flavor. And then I'll be adding the nature seasoning. You notice I use this a lot. It's a great all-purpose seasoning. And then in a little bit, once I add my peas, carrots, and tomatoes, that'll lend the liquid, then I'll add my garlic. Okay, so it's been about 5 minutes, and these vegetables are sweating nicely. They're just barely starting to get tender, and I don't actually want to cook them all the way because I'll be processing them at 90 minutes, for 90 minutes at 10 pounds of pressure, which will actually make them very tender because of the chicken. So I'll go ahead and add my tomatoes and my peas and carrots. Turn down the heat, get this mixed in, and then I'll get my chicken chopped up and add it in. Okay, now I'm going to add the chicken. Think that's enough? Filled up one of these. That'd be pretty good. So we'll stir that around, and then I'll add some water to make a broth. Okay, so I've just added about 1.5 gallons of water, and I'm waiting for this to come up to a boil, and then I'll add in my rice. And I've got two beautiful ladies for you to say hi to. PetPrepper and Allen2045. Hello, pretty ladies.
Hello.
And they're doing chicken and wild rice soup too. So I'll come back to you in just a minute, okay? Okay, so the soup has been cooking for about 45 minutes. Got my hot jars ready to go. And got my funnel. So as carefully as I can, always left-handed. I'll ladle this into the jars. Oops. This is really hot, really good. Decided since I was making soup, I'd also make cream of basil tomato. That turned out really nice. Approved all the taste tests. So I'm going to get this in the jar, fill up all the rest of these, and wipe off the rims, get the tops on, and then put this in the pressure canner at 90 minutes at 10 pounds of pressure. So I'll get back to you when this is all in the jars. Okay, so that big pot of soup ended up making 9 quarts. Let's see, probably about a 2-quart measuring cup, and that right there, but I'll actually dehydrate this and make this pocket soup from one of Bear's videos. So I'm going to get the lids and the rings on, which are in the hot water now. Then I'll get my cream of tomato basil soup in the jars, and I'll put this in a boiling water bath. Since there actually is no dairy, I know I said it's cream of tomato basil, but I actually use a non-dairy product in here. So I'll get this into the boiling water bath, and I'll get this in the pressure canner. Since these are quarts, and it isn't meat, chicken, they're going to be processed at 10 pounds of pressure for 90 minutes according to my altitude. So I'll show you when they come out. So my jars came out of the canner just fine. Actually, they came out great. And I was a little leery about putting the rice in here, but it seems to have done very well. None of the seals are exploded at all. My tomato basil soup is beautiful as well. Beautiful color. So there you go. Chicken and wild rice soup. I used a slightly different recipe than the gals, but you know, the one great thing about soup, it's so versatile. You can just throw in whatever you got and make it work. Well, there you go. Canning is an everyday adventure. Take care and prep honestly.